resort to this again! Fusion! Bring it!
I still can't believe I get to say this, but thanks to the amazing people over at Summer Game Fest, I had the honor and privilege to play the Dragon Ball Sparking Zero demo early. I had 25 minutes to play the demo, and I had an absolute blast throughout it all. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys my first impressions of the Dragon Ball Sparking Zero demo. First up is that there's brand new controls for Dragon Ball Sparking Zero that do differ from how it was in the earlier Tenkaichi games. But using the Xbox controller as an example, since that's the controller I used, the X button is your rush attack, the Y button is your ki blast and rush chain attacks, the B button is your perception, and A is step or short dashing. Now remember, Jun Fudetani, the producer of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, said that your movement speed in Sparking Zero is as fast as dashing was in Tenkaichi 3. So because of that, it makes sense that the A button is no longer a dedicated dash button, right? Apart from the short dash, because you can just move around the screen and it's just as fast as it was in Tenkaichi 3. But you do still have the option to, you know, step in with that button, and of course, short dashing to kind of quickly close the gap between you and the opponent. And also the B button being dedicated to perception because the guard button got moved over to RB. So with your perception, that allows you to deflect blasts that are coming your way. And of course, the right trigger is your key charge, LB is ascend and jump, LT is descend, and then of course your left stick is to move, and the right stick is to move the camera. So again, these are the standard controls, but if standard controls just don't fit your playstyle whatsoever, then you're in luck because they also do retain the classic controls as well. And this is more akin to how it is in the older Tenkaichi games. So just running through the controls again, X is your rush attack, Y is your ki blast and rush chain, but this time B is now your guard, and A is still step and short dash. And with the shoulder buttons, RT is descend, RB is ascend and jump, LT is key charge, and LB is your revenge counter. And then of course, moving and camera movement are the exact same. So again, you have options on how you want to play Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. If you want to play the game with the more modern controls, then you can pick the standard option. Or if you're so accustomed to the original games, then you can also play with the classic option. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero also has battle assist, so this is pretty much for those who are going to need some sort of guidance, mainly if they're trying to get into the series. So there are two levels of battle assist. You have automatic, where every option is turned on, and it pretty much does a majority of the hard work for you. I would assume that this is for newer players who have not really played the Tenkaichi games in the past. And then there's also semi-automatic, where only some of the options are selected. I'm assuming that this is probably for people who are a bit more tenured with Tenkaichi, but probably just need a bit of extra help. But of course, if you don't want to play with battle assists on, you can completely turn it off. So the option on how to play this game is completely up to you. Next up is stage and BGM selection. So in the Sparking Zero demo, the stage and BGM selection actually comes before the character select screen. Why they decided to change that, I don't know, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. But the available stages that were in the demo were Planet Namek, Open Field, Rocky Land, City, World Tournament, Land of the Kais, Islands, City Ruins, and Destroyed Planet Namek. Unfortunately, since we were so pressed on time, I didn't really get the opportunity to actually swap out the BGM. I really would have loved to check out what songs they have in this game, but again, I was pressed on time. So unfortunately, I don't have anything concerning the BGM, but again, the stage selection and BGM selection come before the character select screen in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. And now we get to the character select screen. So if you guys remember the latest V-Jump and you saw the image of, I believe it was Caulifla, Kale, Trunks, and Goten on a screen, that was actually the character select screen. But there's a very particular reason as to why this screen looks the way it does, which I'll get into in just a second. But in this demo, we had access to 50 characters, and of the 50, 3 characters were actually not confirmed yet for the game, which we do have permission to talk about this because it was based on our experience that they put out. So 2 of the characters are characters that are already announced in the game, but they have forms that haven't been confirmed yet, which are Super Saiyan Adult Gohan and the base form of Future Trunks from the Future Trunks arc in Dragon Ball Super. But there was one character that was not confirmed in any official media until now, and that character is none other than Dr. Gero. Again, I know people may not be too hype about Dr. Gero, but it's still an extra character that we get to play as, and this video is going to be one of the few videos that you guys get to see that character in action. As you can see, team battles are in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and you can see that on the character select screen on the top left, where you see an image of Goku and 2 pluses. But there is one thing that I do want to specify. In the demo, team battles were restricted to 3v3, but that's only for the demo. In the full game, you'll have up to 5 characters that you can select, but you do still have the option to dictate how many characters fight each other. So to put things into perspective, you see Goku on the top left with 2 pluses. If I wanted it to be a 1v3, then I could press RB and select my opponents, and I could pick all the way up to 3 opponents if I wanted to, and just have it be a 1v3. Or if I wanted it to be a 3v1, a 2v2, whatever type of variation I wanted it to be, you have the freedom to select. So yes, team battles are back, and you do have free reign to decide how many characters fight within the battle. Earlier, I said that there's a very specific reason as to why the character select screen is structured this way. And that's because the character select screen is loading up all the assets for the battle in real time. That's why when you go to stage select and you select your stage, when you start to select your character is already on the stage. And once you start the battle, it immediately throws you into the battle. No loading screens or anything of the sort. You instantly start the battle, which is honestly fantastic. It's different from how it was from the Tenkaichi series because there were loading screens, and I guess I'll also miss those mini games that came with the loading screens. But yes, in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, the character select screen is structured in a way that immediately gets you into battle. And now we get into the gameplay. Now, I know one question that people were asking was, is this game more like Tenkaichi, or does it seem more like Raging Blast in terms of its gameplay? And the answer is, it feels like Tenkaichi. It does not feel like Raging Blast at all, right? Which may be good or bad depending on, you know, who that relates to. But yes, this game feels just like how a Tenkaichi game should feel like. Granted, there are differences from Tenkaichi 3, which makes sense because this is the next game, but this feels like tried and true Tenkaichi. And just quickly pointing this out, if you look at the HUD right above the transformation gauge, you'll notice that there's a brand new icon there, and that icon is your swap gauge. So if you're playing a team battle and you want to swap to a character, once that gauge starts glowing, you can swap to a different character. Swapping characters and transforming are tied to your D-pad on standard controls. I have to specify that because on classic controls, your D-pad is also a secondary movement option. So if you prefer to move with the control stick, you could use that. Or if you prefer to move with the D-pad, you could use that too. Again, that's specifically to classic controls. But on standard controls, if you want to transform or swap to a different character, it's tied to the D-pad. If I recall correctly, up on the D-pad is how you transform, and left on the D-pad is how you swap to a different character. When you hold down the key charge button, your skill list will display. Think of this akin to the Xenoverse series, but with the added benefit of having a free key charge. Anyway, your skill list consists of 5 moves that are sectioned into 3 sections, and those are your Blast 1, Blast 2, and your Ultimate Blast. So, your Blast 1 moves would be the first 2 moves that you see that take from your skill count. Your Blast 2 moves are the next 2 moves that you see that take from your ki. And then of course, your Ultimate Blast move only appears when you're in the sparking state. So, for example, if you guys wanted to use Wild Sense with base Gogeta Super, then as long as you have 2 skill counts and you press LT and B, you can activate Wild Sense. Or if you want to use Here We Go, then as long as you have 3 skill counts, you can hold LT up on the left stick and B, and that would activate Here We Go. If you want to use some Blast 2 moves, then you would hold LT and Y, and as long as you have 3 bars of ki, you can use Super Kamehameha. And if you have 4 bars of ki and you want to use Super Explosive Wave, then you would hold LT, then up on the left stick and Y, and that would activate Super Explosive Wave. And if you want to use your Ultimate Blast, then you would hold LT down on the left stick and Y, and that would activate Big Bang Kamehameha. But remember that these controls are specifically for classic, because if you use the standard controls, then they do change. So, using Bergamo as an example, if you were to hold RT instead of LT, because remember, on standard controls, the key charge button is on RT. and you were to press up or down on the D-pad and you had 3 skill counts, then you could activate his Blast 1, Howl. Or if you had 3 skill counts and you hold RT and press either left or right on the D-pad, you could activate the other Blast 1 move, Come At Me. And of course, if you want to use your Blast 2 skills, you would hold RT and X, and if you have 3 bars of ki, then you can activate Wolfgang Penetrator. Or if you have 3 bars of ki and you want to use Danger Knuckle, then you just hold RT and Y and you would activate Danger Knuckle. And of course, if you want to use the Ultimate Blast Triangle Danger Beam, then you have to get to the sparking state, and then from there, hold RT and B, and you would activate Triangle Danger Beam. But of course, it's not a Tenkaichi game if it doesn't have combos, because yes, a lot of fighting mechanics that were in Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 make a return in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. So, to give you guys a bit of context, your rushing techniques such as Heavy Finish, Flying Kick, Rush Ki Wave, Lift Strike, and much more do make a return in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Not only that, some signature techniques also return, one of which we've already seen in action from a previous trailer, of course the technique being Sonic Sway. That does also make a return in this game. But when we get to combos, that's where we start seeing some differences. So, first things first, there are some combos that do return. Of course, the main one being your Rush Finish, because that's your basic combo string. That, of course, is in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. Not only that, we also did get to see one particular thing from Vegeta, I believe in a previous trailer as well, and that combo was Energy Storm. We've already confirmed that. We already know that that's also in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. And if you get into the sparking state, then you can also use Violent Rush, where of course you get to sparking and you just continuously mash the attack button. You'll be able to combo endlessly until sparking runs out. That also makes a return. Air Combo 1 also makes a return. But that's when we start to see some things branch out to things that don't return. So going back to the Rush Finish, I tried to use the Rush In attack, but that actually doesn't seem to be in this game, or maybe it's executed differently. But from my experience, when I used Rush In and I tried to attack afterwards, it just reset the combo. Granted, it did seem to genuinely connect as a true combo, but it also does seem as if it can be disrupted if the opponent were to probably block or whatever the case may be. Again, the CPUs weren't really the most intelligent in the demo, but it makes sense because it was just for us to be able to get a feel for the game. But still, Rush In is in the game. Rush In attack more than likely won't be. Not only that, but in the sparking state, you're not able to execute Blast Combo 5. I don't know why. Like, it could also be because it's character based. I tried to use Blast Combo 5 with Gogeta and it didn't work. Like, the air combo portion worked, but the actual blast portion where hopefully he would have followed up with like Super Kamehameha at the end of the combo or something didn't work. So again, there are things that return, but there are some things that have been taken out as well. And now we get to the movement, and in all honesty, the movement actually felt very good in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. It didn't feel slow-paced or sluggish whatsoever. Again, your normal movement speed is faster than it was in Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. And of course, you are still able to use Dragon Dash and Z Burst Dash as well. It really does feel as if the developers took as much time as they could to make the movement feel as solid as possible. Because one big thing about Tenkaichi 3 is the movement options in that game were great. But not only were they great because of just the general notion of them being movement options, but they were fast-paced as well. And in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, it's no exception. Giant characters make a return from the Tenkaichi series into Dragon Ball Sparking Zero in the form of Great Ape Vegeta. And there are also some details about how the Great Apes functioned in the Tenkaichi series that carry over into Sparking Zero as well. One of which that I managed to pick up on is that Rush In Blast 2 moves don't work on Great Apes at all. Reason being is because the Great Ape is a giant, so it just does not work on them regardless of who you're using. I wasn't able to test out every single detail about Great Apes, such as depending on the power level of characters, if they would cause them to flinch or not. Now, of course, you guys see gameplay of Gogeta fighting against the Great Ape, and he was able to cause the Great Ape to flinch when he attacked. But I didn't get the opportunity to test it with a quote-unquote weaker character, like if I were to use Tien or Yamcha or whatever the case may be. But I'm assuming that if that is still a thing, then that would also carry over. But again, unfortunately, I wasn't able to test that out. Clashes also make a return, but there is something different about how it's done in Sparking Zero in comparison to how it was in the older Tenkaichi games. So, in the older Tenkaichi games, when you got into a clash, all you had to do was rotate the control stick, and whoever rotated it the fastest won the clash. But in Sparking Zero, there's actually a QTE that you have to do before the actual clash executes. So, if you dash into each other, there's a large circle on the screen that will slowly start to shrink, and you have to get it within a particular gauge to deal more damage. You also have the option of pressing RT as well, but afterwards, then you mash the X button. And of course, whoever mashes the fastest will end up winning the clash. I'm assuming that with the boost, it just allows you to deal extra damage from the clash. So again, you no longer have to rotate the control stick. All you have to do is mash the X button, but beforehand, you want to make sure that you get that boost first. Your key gauge is probably one of the most important mechanics, well, in any Dragon Ball game that you play. But the Tenkaichi series did something different with their key gauge. See, in the Tenkaichi series, if you charged your key on land or in the air, then you would charge your key at a normal rate. But if you're in the water, then you would actually charge your key slower. And in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, they brought that back. So if you're ever in a predicament where you need to charge your key, make sure that you're either on land or in the air, because if you're in the water, you will charge your key slower than usual. If there's one thing that Spike is good at, it's making their Dragon Ball games look good. And in this case with Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, that also seems to be the case, because this game looks absolutely gorgeous. I genuinely don't think that videos do this game justice, because playing it in person was an absolute experience. Again, Spike has never been bad when it came down to their graphics for the Dragon Ball games, and you can really tell that they took their time with the visuals for this game. It seems to be way more lively than the previous games. Even throwing in the Raging Blast series and Ultimate Tenkaichi into the mix as well, those games do look good for their time, but it's nothing compared to this. This is definitely a step above what it used to be. As you guys saw at the beginning of the video, in-game fusion does make a return in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. We did get a glimpse of how that looked like in the Fused Warriors trailer, but I actually had the opportunity to execute the in-game fusion. And it looks pretty nice, especially because they added that swirl thing from the Broly movie, and that seems to be a constant for those who fuse with the fusion dance, because in the Fused Warriors trailer, we did get to see that same thing happen with Gotenks as well. And not only that, they have a quote that they'll say before they actually start fusing. In the gameplay that you guys saw, I led off the fusion with Vegeta, and he was saying how much he really didn't want to fuse with Goku again, and then they vanish away, fuse, and then you're able to use the Fused Warrior, which in this case, it was Gogeta. But unfortunately, in this demo, Gogeta was the only fused character that was playable. Vegito, Kefla, Gotenks, and even fused Zamasu were not available in this demo. So I wasn't able to really test out as many fused characters as I would have liked to, especially Vegito, but at the very least, in-game fusion does make a return, and if you're fusing with the fusion dance, it has the swirl thing from the Broly movie. It looks pretty nice. I also had the opportunity to play as Grade 8 Vegeta in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and the character plays very well. Like, in terms of the character, I have no issues with him whatsoever, but there is one thing that I hope that they fix, and it's not really in relation to how the character plays. So, remember that giant characters have been a thing in the Tenkaichi series, but in the older games, giant characters were big, but they weren't necessarily gigantic, if you get where I'm coming from. Whereas in Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, that's not the case. Like, giant characters are gigantic, but because of that, when you're fighting an opponent, it becomes kind of hard to see them on the screen because the camera has to zoom back even further to accommodate the giant character, which in turn makes your opponent appear smaller. And sometimes while you're attacking, the character will end up covering up whoever your opponent is. And especially if they're far away, then good luck trying to see the character. So I hope that they add some sort of thing that'll help those characters become a bit more visible. But apart from that though, Giants are awesome, but that's about it. In all honesty, this game is shaping up to be an incredible one. It seems like it's just tailored to Dragon Ball fans in general. So, classic fans who have played the older Tenkaichi games, if you're really skeptical about how this game is going to work in terms of combos, movement, or even just general controls, I don't think you have anything to worry about. And for new fans who may be intimidated by how fast-paced the action is for the Tenkaichi series, don't worry, I think you guys will also be fine with the standard controls as well. It seems like a game that is going to be accessible to anybody who's interested in playing it. But those are my thoughts on the Dragon Ball Sparking Zero demo, but I do want to know what you guys think about this in the comment section below, and definitely stay tuned to the channel because I will be uploading more gameplay as well. But with that being said, I'm Ndukauba, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.